Welcome everybody to our, I guess, first ever August regular meeting. You call this a regular meeting. Second one of the summer. And we're happy to have Mark Kaler here to give us talk about a tour of my roll-off roof observatory. And she'll tell us about how we wound up doing this project. It's a huge project. So, Mark.
All right.
So just show us where you are with respect to your house. This is like, well, why don't you go ahead and
All right. Well,
So to start out with, this is going to be very informal. Please speak up if you have any questions.
so I'll get Greg can do a 360 here in a second once he frees things up.
okay.
We're sitting roughly in the middle of about a 5-acre lot, with the house on the southeast side of the property, or the northeast side. The observatory is on the eastern edge, and
where are you?
fair amount of clearness. So, Greg, if you just want to spin it around here, you can see the house is off in the background here. So for the project, what I started with was just a slab of cement, basically 10 by 16, and I would set up out here with a portable telescope and a pop-up tent, and at the end of the night, everything would collapse down, and I'd carry it all back into the house. I did that for about 3 years, kind of started getting tired of that. And roughly in 2016, decided it was time to stop researching and go ahead and just build a observatory. I looked at several. You could purchase them in the tens of thousands of dollars, and I said, well, that's beyond my budget. So I started just noodling on a back of an envelope, as engineers tend to do. And the next thing was figuring out, all right, how much material will I need? Loaded up the trailer and hooked up the trailer and went down to the local Home Depot and loaded it full of lumber and came back and started hacking up wood. That was my plan. So this has been rather an ad hoc building of a product. I knew that I wanted to make the sides about 4 feet tall so that I could utilize the siding that was 8 foot by 4 foot and just cut it in half and not have any waste. So that dictated the actual height of the observatory for the fixed wall size. And then the roll-off, what dictated that was measuring the telescope and figuring out how much height I needed to be able to roll off the telescope without having to disassemble the telescope. And so it ends up being roughly at the peak 8 feet tall. And that was just me sitting there with a couple of 2x4s and some screws and boards and screwing them together until I had one piece that looked about the right size. And then I prefabricated the rafters and went after it. I don't know how far you can come back, Greg. I want to walk on this side of you here.
That's about it there.
Roof rides back on these rails, and minus a small tractor accident out here when I disassembled the extra 4 feet of track out here. It did go out about 12 feet, allowing me to roll the entire roof completely back. But what I found after using it for a while is that I only needed the first 10 feet of space to be able to see the sky in its totality for what I had for observing around here. I do miss a little bit of the southern sky, but over here we have Roseville and Auburn and Sacramento. And well, I think you guys all know the night sky over there is a little bright. Even at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, you still don't get much imaging. So that's sort of the basis of the outside structure. It's a simple 2x4 construction. We'll go inside, I guess, and give you a little walk around. Oh, it's cool rocking here, Greg.
Has it?
Yeah. All right. So as you can see, there's actually a fair amount of clearance here. I'm 6'2", so you've got about 6'6", 6'7" clearance up here. But
I don't have a problem.
yeah, Greg has no problem. And I don't know where you're pointing right at the moment, but as you can see up here, the scope has about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of clearance as I roll the roof off when I leave it in the parked position. And basically, yeah, I could have chosen a different parked position where the whole telescope was tipped over. I just didn't want to leave it in that mode. It just, for long periods of time, supported in that position bothered me. All right, so I would like to just roll this back to get.
That'd be nice, yeah.
All right.
So, by way of some history, Mark has a history of sailing, and so we have lines, not ropes.
Mark, what is it rolling back on your wood?
It just.
Mark,
Yes, just give me a second.
okay. Is it in?
There we go.
like-
Sorry.
Okay, so how is it rolling back? What is it setting down on? The roof?
Oh, okay.
Hang on, let me take the camera out and I'll show.
There are.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
So
So
basically,
I just see wood.
the structure in the back here
You're just seeing wood.
is just it's just a level extension of the top of the frame, and so as it rolls back, it rolls on top of that.
Okay, wait a minute, but what is in the tracks? How do you get it back to roll?
The roof, on the roof, there are on each side 14 of these casters screwed into a plate above here.
And so you
Okay,
can see them.
And each of these casters can support 150 pounds. So I had no concerns about overweighing on the on the whole thing.
Okay, so
Maybe a little over-engineered from that standpoint.
you can
No, that's
punch
fine.
them in the back there. You can see on
so
the
then
side.
you just roll it back with your system of pulleys.
And
Okay.
this gives me about a 3-to-1 advantage.
Okay,
This is Charles weighing in. You cannot over-engineer.
Charles, what was the question?
Was there a
You
question?
cannot, yeah, you can over-engineer.
Over engineer, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
There we go. There we go. So now we have a little bit of fresh air in the observatory.
Okay, so.
So let's see here. The obvious, there's the scope. It's a 14-inch Meade. The 2,845 millimeter focal length, an f8, 14-inch diameter, or what is that? 355 millimeter. On the back of the scope, I have a camera attached in the viewing port with a micro focuser to give me the ability to look. I do very little visual with this scope anymore. It's just so pleasant just to be able to grab a quick picture and see what I'm looking at.
So, okay,
Turn that on.
master control panel there.
Yeah, it's a little. Come over here.
Mark, why did you choose a Meade?
Let's see, 8 years ago when I did this, I thought it was just so special. The LX 850 had all the features I was looking for in a cost model that I could afford. If I were doing it again today, it would not be my my choice. To be honest, the support that you get from Meade is minimal at best, and woefully inadequate. That said, it's behaved itself fairly well. It does what it says it's going to do. Its design was well ahead of the industry at the time. It has its own star alignment and tracking, so I didn't have to put in a tracking camera. It was already in the package, and so it fit the bill. What I really wouldn't have done in retrospect, given the light pollution that we have seen over the last 5 years here. Well, let me back up. When I first got here in 2012, I could sit out here on a lawn chair at night, look up at the sky and see the Milky Way. And with a digital camera, get great astronomy pictures. Now, you just can't do it, except for the rarest of nights. It's just almost impossible, and so it's really deteriorated a lot. And so having a 14-inch scope sitting here is a waste of money, to be honest. You know, a good 10-inch scope,
Mine's 5.
or yeah, but I mean, in terms of this style, would have been more than sufficient for the light conditions that we see here.
Yeah.
So this piece is just it's the cutout that allows the roof to roll back without interfacing the telescope. But honestly, I can see over it to see everything I need to see. So, for instance, if I needed to do a polar alignment, it's actually right above, just above here.
Okay.
But it just comes off, and I can set it down out of the way, and it gives me complete access to the outside skies.
Yeah.
Wow.
Move that in there so it doesn't go on
Okay.
something. There we go.
Okay.
All right.
Mark, can I ask
yeah.
a question?
Yes, you
Did
can.
you choose this property for the openness of your pasture?
In the back of my head, I have several hobbies, and many of them were just begging for open space. Astronomy being one of them, flying model helicopters and just RC activities in general. The other was having lived for 35 years down in Silicon Valley, where I could reach out and touch my next door neighbor from my bedroom, you know, and I just did not want to be in a tight space. So we looked at a lot of spaces. Most of the houses we looked at, though, were, you know, 5 acres on a hillside. So you basically could live on the space they plowed out the surface for the house, and everything else was in a 35-degree angle. And so when we saw this, it struck a deep chord with me, I guess. And I kind of fell in love with it. But now it had taken me about 5 years. We've been here 10, taken me about 5 years to clear out all the rocks and fill in the holes and stuff. So it's a work in progress yet. And as Greg knows, as he walked out here, this year we've got gophers that have decided that they're going to recreate all the holes in the property.
The small ones.
It's just small ones, yeah. So yeah, it was one of the criteria I had. The house is actually itself is a rather unique house. It's a dome, geodome construction. And so you can't actually see the dome from here because the trees kind of get in the way. But it makes it a bit of an unusual house in terms of uniqueness in design. It also creates some difficulties in financing and getting insurance because there are no houses to compare against.
Oh,
So you think,
wow.
I live in a dome, and they go, and you're an astronomer and you live in a dome. How convenient. I said, no, not that kind of dome. So
How many square feet?
yeah, we have 5,200 square feet.
Okay. big house. Yeah.
not including the deck.
Yeah.
Which is another 2,500 square feet. Yeah, for two people, it's a
Yeah.
little overkill.
Yeah.
But then we spent 35 years living in 1,400 square feet, so we
Okay.
wanted some elbow room.
I moved from 1,200 to 2,500, so
Yeah,
same idea.
same idea, yeah. Let's see here. Set this right here for a moment. I have this that I use sometimes, depending on whether my neighbors are running their bright lights or not. It also is a dew shield. It's heated, so it does help in the wintertime. But when I put this on, my neighbors behind me and off to the east have some very bright night lights. And the newer the neighborhood gets, the more people who come from the city decide they don't want to live in the dark, and the brighter the lights get. You know, the neighbors over in this direction have put in a couple of, I don't know, 10,000 watt lights, on their
Mark?
patio.
My
Yes.
neighbor next door to me, this is Hillary, asked all our neighbors not to, leave their lights on overnight. And all but one neighbor did that.
Yeah, and I've had actual good luck with my neighbors. Once they realized I was doing astronomical observing at night, Frank, behind the nearest house right behind us here, he turned off the light that lights his pool. He said, I don't need that on. I just had it on there just to, because it was on. And I said, well, thank you. And the next neighbor over, he did some more construction, and he actually ended up moving his light to the other side, so it doesn't bother us now at all. But it's, every time you get a new neighbor, you've got to go through that conversation of light pollution, and could you please consider not having your lights on all night long? Let's see, what else can we talk about?
A lot of gadgets on the side of the scope. What are all these
right,
pieces?
All right, so we'll start up here. Mead has something called Starlock. I don't know if it's on their current product line at all anymore. But what it is a wide field camera and a narrow field camera that do precision alignment once you get a star lock on. So for instance, if I'm looking at something, let's say it's a galaxy that's close to Vega, what it'll do is it first goes to the galaxy where it thinks it is, then it scoots over to Vega, does a precise lock on, and then it slides back down to where it knows that the galaxy is at, and then it stays locked using these cameras to keep an eye on Vega and or whatever star happens to be next. I just know that Vega was out last night at 10, so it was a good candidate to suggest. Here.
So basically, it's Mead's proprietary version of PhD2 built in.
Yes, exactly.
So it's all contained. You don't need a computer to run it.
No, this all is done within the handheld and the firmware on board.
Okay, so that's the top two.
That's the top two. This is just a sighting scope. I have a dew controller here just to be able to set things up. I had when I have a lens on, I have a thermal wrap that I can put around it. The camera itself doesn't need one. In fact, the colder you keep it, the better off you are.
The dew
So these
controller.
are the dew controllers, right?
Okay.
Make sure they're all off.
Okay.
Most of the wiring now I've gotten running through the Centra here. So there's outside of the camera, everything kind of runs down. So when I spin around, I just have to remember, have I gone 360 degrees? I need to go the other direction, come back around and unwrap things. Let's see.
Okay.
That's the basis of it.
So
it's a pretty much standard German
And then
mount.
you said there's
Oh, and this guy here.
I've ever seen.
What's that?
That is the most incredible mount I've ever seen.
This is my Wi-Fi connection to the telescope. so that I can basically control it from my iPad. In essence, I bring up Skywatch or whatever it is. I can't remember now which program I have running. And you know, I can point at something and then the telescope will slew to it.
So you can say, go to M57 and it looks it up
It
and.
looks it up,
and-
figures out where it's at and just goes off and does it. Now I can do that from the hand controller, but as with all hand controllers, you know, you've got 40 million presses of the buttons to get to it. And then you get a list like, let's go to M. Oh, okay, now I can hit M here and then I can go 45. But if I'm going to a star, I got to parse through them from A to Z or Z to A. You parse through it. And invariably, you know, you're somewhere in the middle.
And
where
80
you
of them
say-
are Al something.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see, most all the rest of that just power bricks for controlling things. A little laser pointer that I'm experimenting with to do some sighting with. After having sat here for a little over a year without actually doing any significant astronomy, I turned it on last night, and went over to find the moon and spent 15 minutes scanning back and forth. Very narrow field of view on this. And so then I locked in on it, had no problems. I said, well, let me see, Vega is just popping in and out of the clouds. So I went over to it and spent a half hour because it's right there.
Oh,
And now you're down here staring through that, trying to go, yeah, okay. Your neck gets stiff, your back gets stiff, your knees get sore. Yes, a nice little 45 here or 90
90 would
would
be,
have been-
yeah.
helpful. Anyway, once I got there, I was playing around with this guy. I could just shine a laser up there and go, oh, it's right next to that. Okay. So I figured out how to find it. I got to get it zeroed in though. Let's see. For controls on this, there's a gross level focus
Hang on.
on the back of the scope. The larger ones, it moves the whole mirror in and out, and then the smaller knob moves it incrementally. Once you get close, the suggestion is to go ahead and lock the mirror in, which I hadn't done, and then use the tube here to get your focus moving in and out. I have a micro electronic focuser here, so I can, from the controller, can actually adjust and
So
slide
you're
in and out.
adjusting in and out by eye, basically.
Yeah,
There's no automatic.
no,
Okay.
no automatics on this.
And does that focuser hook back to the computer or just it's just all local?
This one can, well, it hooks to here.
Okay.
So no, it doesn't. I have a controller emulator on my iPhone,
Oh.
and so I can choose to connect that. The problem with that is it's a single source of connection. Yeah, I can either connect to this or I can connect to the star chart. And if once you make the change, you cannot go back. The software is old and unsupported. So you go, oh, I'll just quickly go over to this because it's so much easier to do all these commands on the iPhone. And then you try to go back to your thing and go, okay, seek to this star. Oh, I can't connect to the computer anymore. Or I mean to the telescope anymore. I go like, ah. And you want to, you know, you write a nice letter to me and they go, well, that's not supported anymore. That software is obsolete. You know, they're like, yeah, okay. It does have GPS on it. So we do get GPS.
So at this point,
and-
that's good for time.
Yeah, it gives me the time
Yeah.
basically, and its location. It knows exactly where it is.
And I'm presuming it hasn't moved very much.
And as you can see, it moves a lot. Unfortunately, it did move a little bit somewhere along the line in cleaning up. I kicked one of these guys and shuffled it maybe a millimeter or two, which is what kicked off the stuff. The other is that, you know, when you do time changes, like for instance, when it comes up and connects to the star chart program, it automatically updates the the time stamps and
Oh,
everything.
from the computer.
From the computer.
So you don't need, yeah.
So again, the problem is then, though, that your alignment has to have been done while you're connected to the time sync there versus this time sync here. Otherwise it goes, oh, it's off by 2 or 3 seconds or milliseconds even. And so now your alignment on your scope is going to be off by about that amount, based on time only, not necessarily that it's still perfectly polar aligned. It's just where its head is at for where the stars should be, says, oh, the star should be here. And it's actually just that much off. When you've got this, that much off is completely off of its field of view.
So, but
Even with these guys,
wouldn't the guider override that?
Well, but it's still getting signals from it saying the star is over here. But I see this bright thing here, but that's not the star you're looking for. It's this, it's over here. And it goes, but that's just black sky. So now it starts doing this, going, oh, I found it. No, I didn't. Oh, I found it. No, I didn't. Oh, I found it. Oh, I didn't. And eventually it just says, okay, you must know better. You didn't find it. And it turns the light off here. It says, I'm not seeking any longer. Do your thing. Which, for the most part, to be honest, that's one of the things I do like about this setup is as robust as it is. Guidance is sort of, I can do without guiding for 30 minutes, and exposures, and have really very little drift.
Oh, wow.
Its accuracy is pretty darn good. Now, I'm not saying I would put them in a magazine thing.
No,
you're still
but-
going to get oblong stars.
But you're talking
But
minutes.
Minutes.
I couldn't do 30 seconds
Yeah.
without
And
guiding.
so, yeah, and most all of my imaging is 30-second stacks.
Mhm.
So, when you bring it down to that point, you go like, oh, okay, I can live with that.
Yeah.
So even if it does turn it off, the precision, I'm still pretty good shape for what's going on.
Okay.
You'd
What else?
mentioned, I had a question. You'd
Yeah.
mentioned that you have a lot of light pollution there.
A fair amount. Yeah,
Uh,
it's getting worse every year.
Have you considered using a filter wheel and trying narrowband? Because narrowband imaging doesn't seem to suffer as much that way.
It's certainly an option that I could look at. I do have a couple of filters for light pollution that I've played with in the past. But there's a certain point where, just looking south, I don't care what filter you put on, the lights from the city are just enough that they'll swamp it completely.
Mhm.
Now we get one of the problems with the scope, and several folks have had this issue, is that it gets this shake going at high speeds.
Mhm.
Well, that's not good.
They call it that's just at high speeds. It won't do it anywhere else, but it's a irritating feature. Let's see, objects. That's what I was looking for. Let me go objects, solar system. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
it's moon. Enter.
But it fits into a high-speed slew then, isn't it?
Well, that's what part of the reason I was coming part of the way over was to get it out of
Oh, out of that zone.
that zone. So I'm slewing over at the moment to look at the moon here. We'll see how close we can get to it. Yeah, big guy. Hold on.
Mhm.
There it goes. Settles down.
Are there ASCOM drivers for that mount so that you can hook up
There
things
are-
like,
there-
Sequence Generator Pro and things like that to do things like autofocus for you and things like that nature?
Probably the answer is, let me think about this. Yes, there are. The pain of keeping them all working consistently over time was the frustration I had, particularly when you're trying to run them on a window-based box, that every time you do an update, you go back through and have to tinker with everything to get it all working again.
Mhm.
I found that the simpler I can keep the process, the better off I am for enjoying sitting around and just using the scope and being able to see stuff.
Mhm.
Yep.
So,
Okay, so now we're in theory aimed at the moon.
yeah, I know we're not, but we're close.
Okay.
So we'll cheat a little bit here. I'm gonna come over here. See if I can't get me a little more on.
Okay, so what's he doing here? Hang on.
First of all, you cannot look through a lens cap. Believe it or not, that doesn't work.
Got dark sky.
Yeah, dark sky, that's for sure.
Wasn't even close.
No, it's not. And this is after fooling around last night with it. Let's see here. Hold on. Oh. That's the other problem with I invariably will stick some in the way, and you're staring here, and your finger is going, and you're going, oh yeah, I'm just steering around, and the answer is no, you're not. You're hitting buttons to go into another mode.
I found the last thing you want to do to find something is use the finder scope.
Yeah. Let's see here. Change a little bit here. Well, we should be roughly.
Okay.
Go back into the
Now we gotta get the
office.
computer. Okay.
A few more obstacles in here than we normally have.
Okay. So
All right, let's see here. So where is, it says it's there, but it's not. This is where it gets a tad bit tedious because I don't have the alignment running right now.
So you, Mark, this is Hillary again. You have 3 screens there?
Well, I have an iPad over here,
Okay,
my laptop, and a second screen for the laptop.
okay,
And I just did that tonight so that I could actually have the Zoom running on the laptop. And then I put the camera software over here on the
secondary screen.
secondary screen. Yeah.
That is awesome.
So, well, we're not connecting. Oh, I know why. You also have to be connected to the telescope's Wi-Fi.
Which camera are you actually using?
A
that a
Mellencam,
QHY?
a Mellencam DS16.
Okay.
I also have a Mellencam 10 Tech, which has the cooler plates on it, so that it would have been a better choice for viewing in this heat because it'll cool the sensor down, but it's really not all that great at looking at the moon.
so we can't get it. We can't attach the camera then.
No, I'm attached to the camera. I was trying to get the star chart up and
Oh,
running.
okay. Well, we're just looking at the moon, so it's
And we're just looking at the moon. Yes, well, as you can see, we're not just looking at the moon at the moment. If I can, let's see here, if I do this right.
Is the sky chart program part of the Mead stuff, or is that like a separate sky
No,
chart program like SkyX
It's
or something?
It's Star Safari.
Oh, okay, Star Safari. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, the one you put on your iPad. Got it. Yeah.
right, exactly. So
Yeah. Okay, I've got that one on my iPad also.
yeah, it's just so nice to have. It makes life so easy.
Yep.
Let me come back around here. There's the sun going down. We are looking for the moon.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's playing games with me here.
Yeah. Normally, I actually use SkyX for my program for the one I'm using the laptop on the scope.
Yes, well, that's very nice. This was, I bought this ages ago and just keep upgrading with it. I
Mhm.
haven't I could go the other direction, I just haven't.
Allows me, yeah, I got Sky Safari too, because it allows me to use my iPhone as my hand controller for moving the scope around a little bit rather than spending all the 800 or plus bucks they want for the controller they have for the astrophysics mounts.
Yes, exactly.
And it does all I need to do for that. So most of the time I just have it hooked into the computer and let the computer point it and do all the work.
So right now you can see I have a wonderful blank screen. So I'm staring at a non-functioning camera at the moment.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, 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 what do you know? We found something. Get a little focus going here now.
Which, with the atmospheric turbulence, that's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
Are there fans on that scope, I assume, to cool it down a little bit too?
This particular scope does not have any fans in it. There are a couple of DUI type projects where people have taken the back of the scope off and installed ultra quiet fans
Mm-hmm.
with mixed results.
Yeah.
You know, some of them getting a little more vibration in the scope again, and they end up having to tear it all apart to find different fans. I haven't been eager to try taking that off and cutting up the aluminum back plate to do it. So yeah, it takes a while for it to cool down on evenings like this.
Yeah, I know the Mead 16 has a fan built in. I've got one of those. So I've hooked up a little different right now, but
Well, you know, what we're looking at right now is sort of,
So what's
well,
those?
what we're looking at right now is a frozen image.
Oh. So what does that mean by exposure? A little block.
Oh,
Is that,
you can move that off.
Oh,
and
okay.
Stuff, but it does, basically, it's doing the auto exposure. I clicked it on.
okay.
Turn that off there, and then you can adjust them real time if you need to. But notice the frame count isn't changing.
Oh.
So again,
Well, we found the moon at least.
yes, I found the moon.
Yep.
We're locked onto the moon, which reminds me, now that I am locked onto the moon, let's go back up here and go back to the, oops, enter moon. Doesn't matter which direction I go, it's all right. Down for a second.
So you got 3 counterweights on there.
Plus a little extra.
So how much does that whole thing weigh?
Well, the telescope itself weighs 63 pounds,
Yikes.
you know, and then you figure the Starlock is light. It's maybe a pound or 2 at most. And then there's a 5-pound counterweight on one side and some other doodads here and there.
Oh.
You know.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay. To balance out the left right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mhm.
Let's try doing that here.
While you're doing that, let me point that out to folks here. So what with this kind of mount, you've got to have things balanced. And part of that is left and right on the scope. You've on the back side here, he's got like the finder's off on one side, and he's got equipment down here. That's going to offset the balance. Center of gravity is going to be off center. So he says he's got a 5-pound weight hung off on this side
Mhm.
to balance left and right, and then you move it forward and back for the.
So particularly when you do things like you're hanging this little gem off of here, I was going to do some dual cameras at one point, and this guy sits over here. And you have to do some jiggering to get it to position in here right. But then that weight needs to be
Way out there,
way
yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it doesn't work. And the reality is it didn't work. It was
Oh.
too off balance. It was stressing the scope out.
So on my Newtonian, I did something kind of like that. I had the cameras off on one side, so I put the guide scope on the other side to counterbalance it.
Right.
And that almost worked out okay.
Well, you know, the sun is just below the tree line at this point. And with this scope and the camera that's on there, you can see I get maybe, what is that, a quarter of the moon, roughly, because we're trimming off the tops and bottoms.
So when you're taking images, you're taking stills, I guess, right? Or can you take movies?
I just yes, I could collect movies. Whoops, excuse me, and then take them into another program and strip them out and,
Yeah.
and pull out the
So
best
the
images out there.
auto stacker.
Yeah, something
Okay.
like Auto
Yeah.
Stacker would be one of the options. Alternatively, unfortunately, I don't know what's going on other than probably temperature is affecting me here. The camera keeps freezing. I got like 4 frames here and it locked.
Okay, well, I mean, we're not going to do anything with the image anyway. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try again here. We'll just click on the camera. There she goes. She's running now. So you can do
you give us a little tour of the program.
real-time stacking. Come down here and we've got a line turned on. We'll do additive. Instead, I'll do averaging. I'll leave it on planetary. We'll take, basically it takes the 3 first ones and then builds on that. It doesn't really just take 3 images. And then I'll enable this. Now, assuming it didn't freeze again, which it did. Buggers. Well, guys, I seem to be hit by the demonstration gremlins.
Okay.
I came out here last night about this time and went through all of this, just making sure everything worked fine, and
It was cool yesterday.
and it was cooler yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything was working.
Okay, but the idea, so the program, it's the Mead software, right?
This is not. This
Oh.
is Mellencam's software. This is the camera's software
Okay.
that we're looking at here. So this is free software that Mellencam provides.
So it does stacking.
It does real-time
So
stacking.
this is an EAA basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. You can adjust real-time the histogram to look at the image and change. There we go. And you can see that it, you can adjust. You can get bizarre looking events if you want to trim out light patterns. Usually I'll leave this one set over here at the far right side on the histogram, and then bring the left side in until we're right up to the first peak of light, which gives the best kind of image. If I remember right now, I'm in color. The other option is I can set the camera to just work in grays. When you do that, you can see that the histogram now just comes down to one spike. You don't have the red, green, and blue to build up on. And again, you can kind of do things here so you can get a little bit more crisper. When you're looking at the moon, the grayscale, it's a little easier to work with on it. Let's see here.
Well, it looks like pretty good detail considering it's still daylight out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, the camera does a pretty good job.
Look at that.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good place.
Yeah. And probably, you see, that's the downside now of not being able to get Stella to connect, is that I could pick out some stars that are nearby, and about now, some of the stars we actually could pull out of that bright blue sky.
Really?
Believe it or not, yeah. I mean, they're not going to take a picture of that baby, but it's amazing to me that you can actually start to find stars and pull them out of the night sky at this time of night.
I found that for the moon in particular, during the daytime, if you put a polarizing filter in between, you can
Yes.
really darken the sky down nicely. So it really
Yes, you
improves
can. I
contrast.
played around with that a little bit. Gosh, about a year and a half ago, was doing some of that with it. I was going through a whole craze of filters. Unfortunately, I don't have a filter wheel, so it means pull the camera out, put the filter in, push the camera back in, try to keep it in the same spot so the focus is almost the way it should be.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no. And so it ended up being a lot of tweaking. Yeah, I find that most of my astronomy is playing around now with particularly going to just the visual, using a camera. I'll spend hours going, ooh, let me try this. Oh, hey, that was an interesting setting. I wonder if I go back to that image and try that setting, what it'll do.
Yep.
So what we're doing here, we're shooting at one set for the gain. It goes from 1 to 20. We've got an exposure of 14 and a quarter milliseconds. Yeah.
Really quick.
Yeah.
So the frame rate, you're downloading all that data in pretty close to real time then.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not great. It's 10 frames per second.
What's the pixels size?
This is 4640, 4,640 by 3,506.
So on my Raspberry Pi that drives my camera, it's about the same resolution on when I'm in it 2x2. That would take 3 seconds to download. One.
Yeah, and I'm getting 10 roughly. We can go to bidding on this.
So but 14 milliseconds, you're getting close to, 20 milliseconds would be 200 milliseconds. That's a 50th of a second.
Yeah.
So you're getting 50 frames per second.
Yeah, but the wire is not allowing me to get all of that. There's some buffering going on.
Okay.
There's some timing loss in buffering. It buffers it up and stuff, getting it off the camera and onto the.
You're getting.
And I'm also running as a USB 2.
Okay.
I believe.
Oh,
No, it's running as USB 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're running frames per second. I'm running seconds per frame.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. True. So right now we're bidding at 1 to 1.
1 to 1. Okay.
You can go to 3 to 1. Of course, the camera's still bidding. We're shooting so much more. We're getting so much more light on the pixels.
Oh,
we gotta.
So is that CCD? Or CMOS?
It is CCD, CMOS, CMOS.
So not a CCD then.
No.
Okay, so the binning is going to be on software.
Yes,
Okay.
it is basically a software kind of binning.
Okay.
And then we're gonna
So
bounce
that's
that back up in size here. Let's
not gonna-
hit the window.
Mhm.
Now we're seeing some of the thermal effects.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a lot faster now, so you're getting
Yeah.
thermal in there.
Oh, wait a minute.
But you can see the wavering,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
but the
One thing
resolution is still pretty good. But I mean, that's a
Yeah.
binning of 3 by 3. I'd
Mhm.
come down though, we're shooting at 2 milliseconds, basically.
Mhm.
So those are atmospheric effects, those waves?
Yep,
Wow.
yeah, that's just our warm valley heating up the,
Mhm. Thermal currents there.
Wow.
One thing you can do if you want to get the whole moon, even with just that field of view, is you could take 4 separate images and then stitch them together. There's freeware like the ICE software from Microsoft that works real well. I've done that.
this,
and
yes, it does. I've done that with it. Mellencam actually will do that for me also.
Okay.
I can
Okay.
create
It's got mosaic mode?
mosaic mode, and
Okay.
I can stitch them up.
Yeah, I just found ASTAP, ASTAP. It's it's mostly noted for being a really good plate solver,
Oh, uh-huh.
but it's a jack of all trades. I've had that last month. It can do mosaics.
Hmm.
The fishing, you just
Yeah.
feed it the frame. and
Really, really nice for doing Andromeda.
Mhm. Oh, God, yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
for me, that's
Yeah.
without a reducer, and I usually use a reducer. I'm not using that tonight. I just didn't want to complicate the equation. I had it up and working without it. With a reducer, it's 0.66, so 2/3.
Okay.
So it takes this from 2,800 to, I don't know, 17,
Mhm.
19, somewhere in
Yeah.
that range.
So
Now your images start to get a little better, but it also takes it from an F8 down to an F5,
yeah, that's nice.
which really helps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Do you notice much vignetting when you do that?
There is a little bit of vignetting. I have played with three different lenses. One from our good buddies down here at
Stellarview.
Stellarview,
Mhm.
and one from Mead, and then one from Mellencamp. To be honest with you, the Mellencamp, probably because it was designed around the camera, is superior. There's no vignetting that you can perceive on it.
Nice.
Not to say that it's not there,
Mhm.
but doing video
Mhm.
photography kind of
So-
astronomy, it's not there.
Can this save stills in like FITS format?
Yes,
Okay, that's what you need for STAT then.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do, we can also save light, dark, and
Nice.
all the very flats.
Yeah. Okay. So
darks,
calibration.
biases.
Yeah, calibration
We
frames.
can do all of those. If we were going to be observing tonight, you definitely want to have at least the blacks
Mhm.
to the darks
Right, because we need.
in here, because all of the little electrical bits and pieces, and it's amazing to look at it when you throw in. I have some saved away that I did earlier today in the heat of the day, so they're
Mhm.
probably close. But in a star field, that you're looking at almost all black sky, and you throw that in, you go, oh, there was a little red dot and a green dot and a white dot, and all of those, they're all gone.
Mhm.
You know, all those pixels that are just
Yeah. The
wrong,
hot pixels,
or
yeah.
the hot pixels are all gone.
Yeah.
Catches them all. It's amazing to do.
Mhm.
Good.
So-
What have we covered? What questions people have?
Mark, was there really a Mr. Malinkamsky?
It's Mellencamp.
Malinkamsky,
Malin.
but it looks like Malinkamsky.
Mallin, Malin. He's in Canada, just across the border from Niagara Falls. Complains every time he goes out to view because his best views are across into the U.S. across the his views are across the Niagara and gets the light pollution from the U.S. and then in the other direction he has what is the big company? It's Tiger or something like that in Canada, and he's fighting battles with them on a continuous basis, get them to turn their lights off at night because their parking lot. He said, I don't understand why they feel they need 1,000,000 kilowatts of light on their parking lot in the middle of the night.
Mhm.
They've got guards. It's 10-foot fences. He says it's not like somebody's going to steal a semi and drive it away. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, he's still very active, although he's probably in my age group. He's up in the 70s, and so I don't know. It's a private company, so I don't know the future for that. What his succession plan is.
So he would be good at coming up with a line of light pollution filters,
Actually,
given the
no,
situation?
he would prefer to try to combat it in the camera itself,
Really?
and shuns light filters in general. Just
Interesting.
he doesn't want to complicate his world. He just wants to go out, do some viewing, and use his camera to pull back images that are beautiful that people like to look at and go to star parties, and you get with a screen like this, you can have, 5, 6 people behind you. But if you put a projector up and you get a 10-foot screen and you're projecting, you can have a room of, an outdoor audience of 20, 30 people watching what you're looking at, and basically real time seeing most of the major sky events. You can look at pick one, M1 and through 50,
Right.
whatever's up at night, and get them. And with a fair amount of success at doing it. Now the cameras have gone well beyond them. My cameras are 3 or 4 years old. This one's probably almost 5 years old. That one's in the box there. Is the other one if you had it to me. There's just like 3 boxes. If you look at it, you'll look at this and go, well, wait a minute, that other than the color, that looks a lot like. Now, ignore this.
Yeah.
That's a Canon adapter. I can put a Canon lens on this. But this is a thermally cooled, electronically cooled. The chamber is in it's got a vacuum chamber, and the plate cools of the chamber, not the chip.
Oh,
Because what Mellon found was that if you're going to just cool on the chip, first of all, the way the chips are built today versus the way they were built 10 years ago, you don't have the fingers to lay down on to cool. You're laying it down on the chip. And what happens is in 2-3 years of up and down temperatures, you delaminate the chip. Whereas it's sealed in a vacuum, and then that plate lays on that and he cools it. It never gets that same thermal shock on the sensor itself. It has a fan built into it. But if you look at that, you've got USB on the back out, so you can chain things together. This is where the camera is in and out. It does require a 12 volts because it has to be cooled.
right.
But it looks a lot, I bet, like yours
Yeah,
in terms of except for the color.
Paint it red and you're all done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So both of the designs were done by a Chinese company. I forget the name of it. In terms of the housing, the difference in he uses grade 0 or grade 1. I forget the terminology. Industrial chips, and he has his own proprietary firmware software running on the camera to control it. Versus the others use the standard companies, the design company. So what he did was he took this housing, brought it back to the shop, and he sat there and spent 2 years working with the designers in China and India, going, okay, that's good, but I want this feature. Can you do this? And so the software basis between the two. If you try to plug this in and run your software on it, it won't recognize it. Versus plugging it in here, mine won't recognize your software. That based on, but I would bet that 80% of the software is the same between them, and it's just the unique bits that one prefers to use over the other.
Yeah, ASI is using the consumer, the DSLR chips, basically. You look at the advances in DSLR
Right.
cameras, you'll see the similar things,
Yep.
the time lag.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the great debate, he's no longer on cloudy night. People picked on him too much. He said, that's it, I'm done with this. You guys are a bunch of bozos. I'm out of here. So he doesn't do, he has a service that people have been using because it was before Zoom became popular. He has a software package that he runs for allowing us to broadcast on his network. And frankly, I don't know what this looks like on the outside. I'll be interested to see the video, but this is far superior than trying to hook up to his broadcast service and do that. I mean, that's 10-year-old, 15-year-old technology he's using versus this. So that side of it. But the nice part was you get to talk to the designer.
Yeah.
He comes out and he goes, here's the chips I'm working on. Here's a prototype camera. And we'll spend 2 hours with him just playing with different settings. And you get an entirely different perspective of the mindset of an inventor who's playing with a camera that's unique. And I found that to be invigorating over just going out and going to the local store and picking up the camera that's commercially available. Whether I would see any difference or any significant change in it, I don't know. You know, I haven't done an A/B compare. Maybe, Greg, that's a chance we could put together at some point.
Have a little
But-
bake-off. here.
a bake-off, yeah.
Bring my scope out
Yeah,
and set it up next to yours and see how they behave. That one could be interesting.
so anyway, you can actually see the sky is actually starting to look dark.
Yeah.
Outside, you wouldn't notice that by looking.
The moon is getting brighter in comparison.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing any stars yet.
what we're referring to is the blackness of the apparent blackness of the sky, and yet I look out and it's pale blue out there.
Share, okay. So the questions.
Yeah, I'm open for any questions. I'm not going to roll back the roof on the demo here tonight. It takes me a few minutes of huffing and puffing and pushing. I don't have ropes to pull it the other direction.
Oh, okay.
It's a manual grunt and
You
push.
need to get motors on this thing.
Yeah, I need to get motors on it.
A little Arduino and a controller, and you sitting in your living room with a, yeah, just
Yep, yep.
open the thing.
Roll
up,
it
have
off
come
and-
alive.
Control everything remotely.
Everything remote would be nice. There's a certain point of payback, you know, you go, when do I call it quits on playing around? I think what I found personally is the more I invest in, I'll call this gadgetry, the less time I spend actually observing. It's amazing with just taking a little telescope out and throwing a nice 2-inch lens on it and just using the Mark I eyeball. And,
Yeah.
But unfortunately, these eyes just aren't
Yeah.
there anymore. They're clouding up a little bit. They got fuzzy bits floating around in them, and you sit there and you go, "What the heck am I?" And it's bad. What you notice is really bad is when your 9-year-old grandchildren are here and they're staring through it, going, "Grandpa, do you see that?" And he, no. So everything works really well. It's just that this
Yeah.
particular part of the equation doesn't work well.
Yeah.
How much do you think that roof weighs?
That's a good question. So going back to the initial, Greg brought it up. He noticed on the roof there aren't any shingles. When I built this,
That's my
I
next
put
question.
shingles
What's on
on,
the top?
and the shingling material that I put on the roof weighed a little over 600 pounds. That's just minus all the wood, the plywood. The plywood is 3/8 plywood, and then it's overbuilt with 2x4 studs on 12-inch centers.
Mhm.
I could have gone to an 18-inch center and done it that way and probably been just as successful, or even a 24-inch probably would have been okay, but I wouldn't have been crawling around on it.
Yeah.
So the roof was on for a year and a half. In the middle of a winter storm, must have been 2017, 2018, somewhere right in there. Came out in the morning and half of the shingling was laying off in the middle of the yard. It caught the corner and we had 50-mile-an-hour winds in the middle of the
Peeled
night,
it right
and
off.
it just peeled it right off. So I tarped it for the rest of the rainy season, and then you may have heard me on the morning coffee net talking with Brian about being out on my roof, painting the roof. It has a silicon-based paint that's similar to what you put on RV roofs or flat roofs on a house.
Okay.
It's very similar to that. In fact, it's not designed to go on a angled roof this steep, but it was 110 degrees and it was drying before I could put the brush across. So it's got 2 coats of that on there, and it's been on there now for since 2019,
Looks
and
brand
it's
new. Yeah.
perfectly dry. That really, and it's flexible, you know, so the give and take as you're rolling this in and out, it doesn't have any problems. So how much does a roof weigh? I would guess, so we're knocking on 1,000 pounds of weight. Even so, each corner has one of these sitting in it, and when I roll the roof back and close up for extended periods, I clamp the roof to the siding so that it can't go
Flying.
walking
Yeah.
away in the in a windstorm.
So, so it would take a strong wind to have a Wizard of Oz effect, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Drifting off a little bit.
Oh, we're not projecting it anyways.
Mhm.
Settle out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have
Okay.
lunar tracking mode turned on, or?
I don't think that is exactly it. I think it's just in surreal at the moment, and I go through and find it, but it's 5 buttons, presses somewhere in there, and I
Yeah.
just leave it.
So you say lunar tracking because the moon moves more than the regular tracking device can follow? Is that it? Is that?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's the moon's
Yeah.
rate and the deep sky are different because the moon's in orbit around us, not around the
Right.
sun.
Yeah, so there's normally a lunar rate and a sidereal rate and a solar rate and
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
things like that, because
Yeah,
they're all a
and
little
thi-
different.
Yeah, this software does not have a solar rate, which doesn't matter because with this scope, I wouldn't be doing solar observing.
A few too many photons coming
A
in.
few too many, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do notice it with the Dob where I put I've got a piece that I put over the top, and then it's only got it's 12-inch, but it only gives me a 6-inch opening, or no, 5-inch opening, and I have a cover for that. Even then, the closest you can get is you put it on lunar and just track constantly. But yeah, I wouldn't do it with this guy. Just way too much focused energy in there. You have to get something to shrink it down, put a
Yeah.
little
Well, you
stopper on
could
it.
put an HA filter on it.
Well, yeah,
solar
but
HA.
even then, just the thermal focusing of that much energy down through there on
Yeah.
the mirror, you've got to stop it down,
Okay.
reduce the amount of photons coming through.
Yeah, I've done that sort of thing with my old CLS, created a disc that I put over the front of it with a hole in it, and then put a one of those Thousand Oaks filters over the top of that. So it
Right.
made it into a 5-inch reflector at that point.
Exactly. That's what's on my 12-inch Dob.
Mhm.
And that works very well. The only it's offset a little bit, so it where it thinks the sun is at and where the sun is at is you got to coax it a little bit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting. Question, what haven't we covered here?
Do you post,
Cover a lot of ground.
do you post any of your pictures on like a website or anything?
I haven't been. I collect them up, and I've got a portable disc full of images that
It's for the
I
kids
like-
and the grandkids.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
family. and-
exactly. Every so often, I'll send something off to the kids. I'll post something on Facebook on occasion, and rare occasions. Me and Facebook are not the best of friends. Every time I go
Mhm.
onto it to do something, I figure I've forgotten how to post this or do that, and then something silly goes on, and then, your family going, "What were you trying to do, Mark?"
I know the Ugly Hedgehog has an astronomy section on it where you can post pictures too if you want. I've got a few
okay.
out there and
Yeah,
that I've posted that way.
right.
Hey, has it started to cool off down there?
Yeah,
A little bit, but we're kind of back in the corner here, so it
Yeah.
doesn't actually cool up.
it's warm in where we're sitting. I don't know what I do with my phone. my watch says it's 90, which is probably close, but I was gonna look at the weather station here locally and see what it said.
All right. Anybody else have any questions?
This was fun. Thank you all.
Well, you're welcome.
Yep.
It was kind of fun for me just to get all of this working again for a while here.
Mhm.
Now we just need some clear skies and cool weather. Just to prove that I wasn't joking, you can see the stars even now.
Hey, what is that?
I've just
All right.
shared.
Is that
Um,
Vega?
That's 80 Virginus. Virginus?
Oh, okay.
Virginus. It's a
That.
+5 magnitude, +5.8.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So,
There's been a hot pixel tonight too, but.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, I got some dust bunnies going in there because I got these rings,
Yeah.
dust rings in.
Yeah, flats will take
Okay.
care of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that there. Yeah.
It's a little, I'd throw the focus screen on, but it's a little too light to get.
Yeah.
The
Would you-
spikes
would you
to-
get the diffraction? Okay,
But anyway, there you go. So you can actually look at stuff in the semi-bright sky.
Yeah, it's impressive. I mean, you can't see that anything with the naked eye now, I don't think, any stars.
No, there's no way to see any stars out there yet.
Yeah, yes, you
And,
can see this. That's pretty impressive. What's the field of vision there from one side of the screen to the other? How many degrees?
I do really know, to be honest with you.
It must be pretty
I,
small.
I can't remember. I used to do you couldn't do it with this image because there's not enough stars, but I used to do
Right.
the screen snatch and then send it over to the plate solver to get the answer back,
Uh,
you know,
but
figuring out.
it's got to
how
be
many-
pretty small if it's a 5 magnitude star.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
It must be
it is
pretty
pretty tight.
Yeah.
And what are we doing? Oh, and we're still imaging at 3x3.
it just speeds it up.
No, I was just thinking in terms of the fuzziness of this.
Okay, I see,
It's a 3x3, so that may be accounting for some of the fuzzy.
All right, guys.
Cool.
That was fun. A
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Well,
Mhm.
thank you all for showing up to see my
No,
little
thank you.
observatory.